is a global problem. But here in China, the particular case is the very expensive school district housing prices, which is seen as the ticket to a good public school. So, and of course, people think that this could be, the privilege of the rich. How do you see this phenomenon?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. First off, this is a global problem. Worldwide, we have governments and government policies that discriminate against the poor as well as the less connected to stifle any sort of upward social or political or economic mobility. Specific to China, the Chinese government has incentivized living in the city through the Gaokao program, where based on where you live or where your residency is, you can take the Gaokao test and you are entitled to services or resources in that area. In the major cities, where for the most part 5 out of the 10 top Chinese universities are, students who take the Gaokao have a significantly higher opportunity to get into the Tsinghua or Peking or Fudan, as an example. What this has led to simply is a huge migration of rural families into the larger cities and a depletion of a lot of rural schools. Some 20 years ago, it was over 600,000 rural schools. Right now, it's 200,000. And you also have poor quality teachers at these schools.
Do you see any possible remedies to fix this?
I think that there are a variety of solutions. In particular, I think that there are 3. One is the use of global education using the internet. Thomas Friedman, a New York Times reporter, wrote a book called The World is Flat, where he talks about the technologization, the globalization of the world through manufacturing. We have used that at a very small scale in education, but I see no reason why there is not infrastructure for teachers in major cities in China or worldwide to be connecting through e-learning poorer and rural individuals and families. All it takes is a cell phone and an iPad, which are becoming cheaper and easier to get. I think that there also needs to be a focus on trade schools and skill-based education. Instead of having everybody get to the top and becoming the engineers, the doctors, the lawyers, the politicians.
If we fill in every niche.
Correct. We fill in every niche where we, as a society, as a culture, say that it's okay to be the plumber, the electrician, the construction worker, and things like that.
But certainly you need proficient vocational training for these people.
Correct. And I think a community investment in schools like that, in areas that need improved teachers, improved facilities, would go a long way for the innovation of an entire country, an entire globe.
Notorious as its reputation to some Chinese people, I also hear arguments that people think Gaokao is still the last and the most fair game for everyone. I can't really disagree with that, but yet I'm not convinced that's the best we can do. For instance, if we have to all cut off a finger to go to college, that's very fair, but we want to do that?
What's not fair about this examination?
Right. It's one shot, like what your colleague was saying. It's one shot. Nobody can take that to evaluate their 12 years of hard work in one shot. That's just not fair for me. And also, I think I also want to argue Gaokao is not necessarily the best way to evaluate a child. They can be so different, talented. I don't know about the details, but the Western world, correct me if I'm wrong, the Western part of the world, they do not look only at the Gaokao score or the SAT score, which is the counterpart for Gaokao. They also look at the GPAs, which I think is a valid instrument to evaluate the student that has been consistently performing in the past 4 years in high school. They also need a recommendation letter from the teachers and from the principals, so they can have a fair and honest feedback on what kind of person this child is. And also they have the personal statement, which I think is great. It reminds me of Keju, which is an ancient tool that the emperors use to choose the wisest man to serve the country.